Good evening. I'm Jan Kowalski McDonald, and tonight I'm joined by, help me out here.
Amara Enyia.
Amara Enyia, and Amara is running for mayor of the city of Chicago. So welcome, Amara.
Good to be here.
All right, so before we get into Amara, let me just tell you a little bit about Greenslate. My sponsor is Greenslate I Incorporated, and Greenslate has any number of programs for ex-convicts. They have programs including re-entry programs. They've got a kids camp for children. It's called the Kirby's Kids Camp in the summertime. Feeding the Families of Inglewood, and last but not least, my favorite is they are authorized service provider through the Circuit Court of Cook County. So if you have any community service hours you need to get fulfilled, please contact my sponsor, Greenslate I. Let me hopefully grab your pens and pencils, and let me give you their contact information here. There we go. Oh, that's a little small. Hopefully I can zoom this without going crazy. Let's try that again. There we go. You can reach my sponsor, Greenslate I. The founder is Ziff A. Sistrunk. Their P.O. Box 378744, Chicago, Illinois 60637. Phone number 217-600-1846. The website is at Greenslate Institute, the number 4 justice.weebly.com. Their email is greenslate the number 4 justice @gmail.com. And I know I said that a little fast, so you can always call the number at the bottom of your screen, and our technician tonight, Pookie, will give you the name, the information you need. And a little bit about me, I'm Jan Kowalski McDonald, and yes, that's Kowalski McDonald. I know that's quite a mouthful there. It is a Polish surname, and for a lot of people, any kind of Polish surnames are just difficult. So we prepared this little PowerPoint, so hopefully I'm going to be able to do this good. So bear with me. There it is. At Greenslate I, I'm Jan Kowalski McDonald. And there's my coal. That's a picture of a coal and a beautiful wall. Last but not least, we got somebody on skis. So you put the coal, the wall, the ski together, and you get Kowalski, and I'm Jan Kowalski. And I'm 100% qualified as a Kowalski. And there's my cute little koala. And of course, you don't want to say koala, it's kowali. And there's the little wally. But I think that violates the copyright, but anyways. And then of course, we've got the Kawasaki. But no, it's not. I wish it was Kawasaki. It's just Kowalski. We're going to add that Kowalski, and we get Kowalski. And back to me. Thank you. All right. Now, Amara Enyia, can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so I am by trade, I'm a public policy consultant, but I'm also an organizer. So I organize on issues across policy areas in the city of Chicago at the community level. I've worked in government. I also serve as the director of a chamber of commerce on the west side of Chicago. A lot of my background has been in economic development and education, housing, food security, and I've worked pretty much from the top level of government to the grassroots level in communities. And so I take that work with me every day, and it informs my candidacy.
Fantastic. I got this off of your website, and I'm going to quote because I love this. Okay, so bear with me. I'm reading for you here. Amara is a problem solver, an advocate. I like advocate because attorneys are advocate because you're representing someone else. You're also a lawyer?
Yes.
Oh, you poor thing. PhD. Did you hear that, viewers? PhD. And you've got a doctorate in what?
Education policy.
All right, education policy. Last but not, oh wait, there's more. Ironman competitor.
Yes.
Wow. All right, how many other candidates are Ironman competitors?
Yeah.
All right, but she's more phenomenal. Wait a minute, there's more. She's a marathoner. All right, are you going to be in the Chicago Marathon coming up October?
I will be volunteering this year, but I've done it many times.
And apparently you're a second generation. Apparently you're the daughter of advocates too.
Yes.
And are both your parents are activists?
Yes.
Fantastic. And here we go. Defender of the public. Yes, I like that one.
Yes.
With a passion for public policy.
Yep.
I love your website. So now, before we get into why you're running, perhaps you can tell our viewers, if they want to get involved in the campaign, whether it's circulating petitions, donating money, because you're a candidate here, how would they get in touch with you, Amara?
So the best thing is to go to our website. It is amaraenyia.com. So first name, last name, AMARAENYIA.com. You can sign up to join our team. We have an amazing and large team of volunteers. They are helping us to collect signatures to get on the ballot. You can also invest in the campaign financially. That is a key part of us being able to continue circulating and to get our message out. And you can submit your ideas and join the team. generally. So we have an amazing, diverse team from folks from all sides of the city that are working with us and that see a vision and are excited to be part of a campaign of ideas and solutions that represent the future of Chicago.
Well, can you tell our viewers a little bit about the vision that you see for the Chicago of the future if you're elected mayor?
Yes, so a lot of what we know, we all understand the challenges in the city. So we can list down whether it's the city's financial circumstances, this issue of violence that has really been prevalent over the last several years, police accountability, education, and what's happening in Chicago public schools. But our campaign has always been focused on what are the actual solutions and what is the vision of the Chicago we want to see. A Chicago that prioritizes equity as a matter of policy, a Chicago that is inclusive, that believes in an economy that actually includes all of our neighborhoods and all of our residents. A school system where we actually talk about what does it mean to be educated and what does education for empowerment look like, and making sure that everyone is entitled to a quality education. And so we see a Chicago that serves the interests of all of its residents and not just some or not just the few affluent or politically connected. We see a unified Chicago that actually values difference and values its diversity and treats everyone with the respect that all of our residents deserve. And so our campaign has always been about what are those innovative ideas that address the unemployment rate, for example. We talk about very innovative solutions to our fiscal challenges. One of the things that I talk about a lot is a public bank for the city of Chicago that would be transformative to creating the kind of strong economy that can support small businesses, that can support homeowners, that can help us finance infrastructure projects, that can recirculate money back into our economy. Those are the sorts of transformative ideas that we put forth. We also talk about things like transparency and addressing issues of corruption, addressing issues of police accountability. We've been very much involved in those conversations. And ultimately, we have a track record of being involved on these issues for years, even before I became a candidate, having worked both at the top level of government, so having an understanding of how these systems operate and what needs to change, but also working at the grassroots level and living in the community and being very close to the ground gives myself and our campaign a unique perspective that feels like Chicago.
Fantastic. I've never heard of the idea of a public bank. I hate to say I'm ignorant, but I don't know what that means. Can you slow that down for me a little bit?
Yeah, so a public bank, if you think about traditional banks, a public bank is a bank whose only allegiance is to supporting the economy of, in this case, the municipality. So its sole purpose is for economic growth. So that means it can issue low-interest loans to small business owners or entrepreneurs. It can issue home loans for homeowners. That could have definitely helped us during the housing crisis. It can help the city actually finance its own large-scale infrastructure projects. That includes everything from our roads, our bridges, our water mains. That's a big issue for us right now. It also can support the economy of the city. So we right now rely on private banks to which the city pays hundreds of millions of dollars just in fees to do business with private banks, your traditional banks. We also had a practice in Chicago, unfortunately, of getting involved in these bad bank deals, where because of those bad bank deals, we were paying hundreds of millions of dollars in fees to these banks. So instead of spending that kind of money on these private banks, a public bank, you eliminate all of that. So we're actually not only generating revenue for the city, we're actually saving money that has been wasted on private institutions, and we're recirculating that money into our economy, which allows us to do more with the resources that we have. And it is funded fully by taxpayer dollars. So we don't have to have a whole extra pot of money to capitalize it or to start it up. It's just a transfer of our funds right now from private institutions to a public bank that is governed independently, transparently, and works in service of the people of Chicago.
Fantastic. Amara, what do you think of the violence crisis that we're going through in Chicago?
So the issue of violence, it's been such a huge issue, especially over the last several years. And what has always been stuck out to me is our willingness or unwillingness to address the root causes of violence. And so for me, violence is a manifestation of our public policy failings across the board. It is our failings in public health, meaning things like exposure to lead, exposure to manganese, lack of access to quality food. Those things actually have biological impacts that manifest in violence, especially in children. It is our public policy failings as it relates to education education and not creating an environment where every child is able to get access to a high quality education. It is the fact that our workforce systems leave out entire populations. Why, when unemployment is upwards of 60% in some communities, like in my community on the west side of Chicago, those factor into violence. It is the investments in police infrastructure without the requisite investments in human capital, meaning we have to invest in our people. It is not having access to mental and behavioral health resources either in our schools or in our communities. It is not looking at restorative justice as an alternative to a punitive criminal justice system.
Wait, hold on. For Greenslate here, I'm dying to know about restorative justice. What does that mean?
Yes, so restorative justice is an approach to conflict resolution and addressing issues, even some violent issues of violence or instances of violence in communities. And it is actually about restoring communities. So instead of sending someone to prison, say if there was a burglary or some other crime, it actually brings the offender and the victim into the same space where they actually can talk through what happened, why. It creates an opportunity for reintegrating people back into their communities as opposed to simply shipping them off to jail.
Amara, I hate this, but we have a caller. Caller, do you have a question for our candidate?
You sure do. Hi, Mrs.
Hi, Miss Paula. How are you? Do you have a question for Amara Enyia, our candidate for mayor here?
Hello, Myra.
Hello, how are you?
It's not Myra, it's
Amara,
Amara.
yes.
Wait, how do you spell that?
Amara.
And what's the phone number?
Myra. That's Pookie. That's Pookie's fault there now.
Pookie.
That's okay. Hey, you got my vote. You're a woman. What's the button? I'm going to press it for you. I got a few questions for you there, Myra, if you don't mind.
Amira.
That's right. Almira.
All right, Paula.
Almira. It's Almira now.
It is. There you go. I like that.
Almira now. That's right.
It's Amira now.
Who would you? Whoa, boy, you got a big job. You got a big job if you get in there, sweetheart. You look pretty strong to me, but
Yeah, be careful what you wish for.
Oh, I do usually get my wishes pretty much, Mrs. Kowalski. Who would you like for mayor? I mean, for governor? If you had to work under a governor, who would you choose, ma'am? You got anybody that you like to work next to you?
Oh, Paula, that's a tricky question. I don't know if we want to put her on the spot like that.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, that's definitely a question. It's very important. So for me, I always prioritize individuals that are willing to be honest about the issues that the state faces, the genesis of those issues, and have a commitment to doing something different. And so we're going to see what happens over the next couple of weeks, I guess, the next few weeks until the election. But what I'm listening for from from the incumbent and from Pritzker, who is the Democratic nominee, I'm listening for someone who acknowledges that the state of Illinois had been moving in the wrong direction, that can speak frankly about the problems that we face, and that is offering solutions beyond talking points that will address the state's issues. That's what I'm listening for in both gubernatorial candidates.
There you go.
Hey, Paula, hang on. We got another caller. Caller, do you have a question or comment from Amara Enyia, our candidate here?
Yes, and good evening,
Hey, Stephen,
ladies.
how are you tonight?
How are you doing, sweetheart?
All
doing
right.
great. I have a two-part question to your guests. Number one, and please don't tell me in the Austin area. Please don't say that. But where is the next area in the city that you could see where it be some way, some nice investments, maybe buy some property in to invest in for a little later down the road, within 10 years of now? Number two, listen to me.
Good question, Stephen.
What we need to do is this. You need to start taxing the people, the largest realtors in the city of Chicago. Catholic, charity, you need to get the Board of Education, you need to get the Sheriff's Sale Department. They the one that own all of this property that we cannot buy, people who do want to invest. So let's tax them, and then maybe they start unloading some of that property. But again, I hope you understand the two questions that I asked. Where is the next place within 10 years it'd be booming where you think possibly a person that want to invest some money, buy some property where they could go into? And Jan, listen, you always looking good, sweetheart. We miss you.
You're making me blush, Steve.
Oh, that's all right, sweetheart. You're going to be okay. I told you that a long time ago. Let me get out the air so I can hear you respond.
I'm dying here,
And
too.
thank you for taking the call.
All right, Amara, what do you say to Stephen's question?
Thank you so much. So those are excellent questions. The first question as to where are the areas where it is a good idea to buy property and to invest based upon what could be happening in the next 10 years. My response to that is for people living in their neighborhoods to buy property in those neighborhoods. So I live in the Garfield Park community. It is a beautiful community.
Oh, it's gorgeous. The field house over there is to die for.
Yes, it is. It's a beautiful,
do they still give tours?
amazing.
I hope they do.
They do.
It's
They
gorgeous.
do. There's still tours available. We have excellent infrastructure, excellent access to parks, to green space. It's a beautiful community, and the housing stock is amazing. I always encourage people, if we want to have a say in how our communities change, you have to own land, you have to own homes, and you have to own businesses in those communities.
You got to be a stakeholder.
Yes,
right.
you have to be a
You
stakeholder.
got to put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. And so the best place to invest is to invest in your own neighborhood. Now, we can all list some of the neighborhoods that are gentrifying right now, but I think that focusing on the block and the neighborhood that you're in, and also thinking about different ways of ownership. So I talk a lot about cooperative ownership and people buying in collectively to buy up blocks, to buy up vacant properties. That is the most effective strategy to ensure that your community is a hot spot 10 years from now, and that you are vested and can benefit from the community's improvement. The other piece that I think the caller was referencing about when large real estate holders who hold on to property, that's actually a significant issue, not just for large real estate holders, but for those entities that hold property that aren't even located in Chicago, and in some instances not even in the United States. And so there is right now on the books, there's some rules that actually create almost a perverse incentive for someone who doesn't live in a community, for example, to actually buy a vacant land or a vacant building, and they will hold on to it until they feel that the market is changing and it can be financially beneficial to do something with the property. Unfortunately, what that does is it keeps actual residents and people who do live in these communities and who do live in the city from being able to own the property and help determine how they can put that property to use in their communities. So we have to address that from an urban planning standpoint. It's something that I've dealt with a lot, especially my economic development work. And it speaks to the voice of community being able to get access to land and properties in their communities to actualize the vision that they have, and not solely leaving that up to just the largest real estate holders in the city.
Well, Amara, I think there's a subpart to what Stephen asked. And Stephen, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you're also concerned about certain properties that are not being taxed. Like I know you mentioned the Catholic charities. As far as I know, and mind you, I'm not a tax expert, I don't think that they have to pay tax. I think they're exempted. So I think your question kind of impacts on whether the rest of us are carrying a heavier burden because of that. So do you have any stance on the current property tax structure for the city?
Yeah, so churches and entities like Catholic Charities do not pay taxes, the property taxes that commercial businesses, especially in commercial corridors, would pay. That's actually an issue that I addressed this year and had a state law passed. The Governor Ronner actually passed legislation that I worked on for over a year with the Small Business Advocacy Council, both the local and the state level. And that law was designed to address the fact that in many commercial corridors, especially in more challenged communities, so if you look at some of the neighborhoods on the west side and the south side, there is a preponderance of churches in those corridors.
Yeah, sure.
And so because you have churches in commercial corridors, those corridors are not able to generate the kind of tax revenue that some of the more vibrant corridors we see in the city can generate. So the examples would be 26th Street in Little Village or Michigan Avenue, where it's just businesses. And so for us, the question was, how do we make sure that in those commercial corridors, we can actually provide more incentives for businesses to locate in those corridors so that tax revenue can actually be generated in those corridors. And it actually required us to change state law in this case. So this is an issue that is definitely significant. It's about making sure that our commercial corridors are vibrant and generating the tax revenue that can then be recirculated back into those communities, and also making sure that there's space for entrepreneurs to locate in high traffic areas where we can ensure that they actually do better from a profit perspective.
But Amara, I don't want to get you bogged down by tax issues, but because you've got a broader vision for this city, including educational reforms, police reforms, and obviously financial reforms. So can you tell our viewers a little bit about the educational reforms that you've got planned for the city? I don't know if you want elected boards on the Board of Education, or what's your platform on that?
Yeah, so the elected school board has been an issue for the last several years that has not happened, unfortunately. I think talking about how we expand the democratic process in our school board right now has been one of the top education issues in the city of Chicago. But in addition to that, I always talk about this issue of equity and what it means to allocate resources equitably so that those communities, those schools in communities where there's the highest need are getting the resources that they need. And so we saw a lot of examples over the last year of simply pretty egregious inequities. One example is special education students were actually being denied services that they are entitled to by federal law because the CPS actually cut the budget for special education services. Now the state had to take over. Another issue that we really have to look at is schools being staffed with the appropriate number of staff to student ratio. Also schools having access to the arts and extracurricular programs and social and emotional programs, and having nurses and licensed counselors on their staff. What we're seeing is that budget cuts have meant cuts in those programs which are just as essential as your standard curricula. So it should not be the case that in one school district there is such a stark disparity in terms of what the quality of educational experience that a child gets in one neighborhood versus another. I also think we have to address the way in which school boundaries are drawn in the city of Chicago in ways that can actually perpetuate segregation and perpetuate disinvestment. We also have to look honestly at how the expansion of charter schools has hurt the overall school ecosystem because they're competing for an ever-shrinking pool of students. And so the school that can attract more students gets more funding. Well, that means that schools in those the schools with lower populations are having to cut teaching staff, they're having to cut programs, and it's not a quality educational experience. So these are just some of the challenges that we have to look at in Chicago Public Schools, addressing issues of equity, addressing programmatic investments and capital investments and where they're happening, making sure that we actually imagine what education for empowerment looks like. That's a conversation that we're not having enough of. And then making sure that we are transparent, that CPS does not have to be forced to address issues like the sexual abuse that was uncovered that had gone on for years and negatively affected so many children in CPS, or this what happened with special education. CPS has to have a culture of transparency and honesty so that we can address some of the challenges that we're facing.
Well, let me ask you, I just heard this headline the other day that apparently the Chicago Public Schools adopted a policy so that teachers are not allowed to phone students or text students. I was wondering what you think about that policy.
Well, I think it was one of the policies that came out after all of the cases of sexual abuse were uncovered, and just trying to create boundaries between students and teachers to minimize any kind of inappropriate contact. I think that for all of the policies that CPS puts in place, it's really important for them to actually engage parents and engage communities before they roll out a policy. There have been a couple of examples of things that they have rolled out that the response was very negative because they simply did not ask parents beforehand what would parents want or what is the voice of parents in this policy measure. And I think CPS needs to get into the habit of polling parents and engaging parents before they roll out any policy measures, because in many instances they've rolled out things with perhaps good intentions, but the outcomes have not been so good.
Absolutely. You know, we've only got a couple minutes, but I'm dying to know what you think about the vast pool of candidates. Like everybody's aunt, niece, uncle, they're all running. So I'm dying to, perhaps you can tell our viewers why they should vote for you. Why are you the preferred candidate for the mayor of the city of Chicago, and why you stand out from the crowd?
Definitely. So the biggest things to keep in mind is that we are at a unique moment in the city's history where we have a chance to actually move in the right direction with leadership that actually reflects our values, with leadership that is committed to service and that is committed to the ideas and solutions that will move Chicago forward. We cannot do things differently with the same individuals or policies that have gotten us to where we are today. And we are all aware of the challenges. We have to have the ideas and the solutions and the energy, not only to put those ideas to paper and to get them done, but also to galvanize people to feel excited about being a part of the city and to feel excited enough about what's happening in Chicago, that they will get involved. In our campaign, it offers that. We offer the ideas, we offer the solutions, we offer a perspective that is very diverse, but everyone is united behind this vision of being optimistic and excited about what Chicago can become and the future of Chicago. And so that's why people are getting involved in the campaign. We have the track record for years, even before being a candidate, where we stand on the issues. Where I stand has been very clear. We have the broad-based experience to be ready on day one to move the city in the right direction. And we have the force of people behind our campaign. This is a people-powered campaign. So it's not just about me and a job on the 5th floor. It's about representing the voice of people that have really supported us to this point.
Are there any specific policies or programs that you want to put in place on day one? You know, I'm sworn into office. All right, this is what I'm doing first. I'm ordering chicken. No. Well, what's the first thing you're going to do?
Well, so because of the challenges that we face, that it cannot simply be one thing. It has to be many. I think the first things that I would do are definitely addressing some of the economic issues that we talked about, making sure that we put in motion the plans for a public bank, addressing our fiscal challenges, education, definitely police accountability, and then addressing this issue of corruption. We have to fire on all fronts, which is why someone with the broad-based experience that I have in understanding both top government and grassroots is necessary to make sure that we can get it done.
All right, they're making me wrap up here, but Amara, any last words for our viewers?
Again, people can go to amaraenyia.com for all of the information, our policy points, events and activities. We're also on all social media, first name, last name, Amara Enyia, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So you can follow the campaign there and sign the petition when you see someone with the shirt.
With the shirt. Oh, you're still circulating petitions.
Yes,
then. Okay,
indeed.
All right, and the website is maybe you should give it.
Yes, AMARAENYIA.com.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us, Amara.
Thank you
Good
so
luck
much.
to you. And thank you for watching and participating in today's show. And of course, I'm Jean Kowalski McDonald with Greenslate I Incorporated. And tonight my technician has been Pookie. Thank you, Pookie. My executive producer is Ziff Cistern. Thank you and have a good night.